Chair, we know that knife crime is not a random event. It doesn't happen by accident. It is a consequence of decisions made by individuals who choose to carry knives and then to use them to brutally murder people. And what do? We light a candle, we hold a memorial service, we say things like, this should never happen again. And then we go on to blame lack of investment, lack of youth services, lack of youth clubs. But I'm not buying that at all. And whilst we're sat here in the Palace of Westminster, the families of the deceased must live with a life of pain, and the families of the attackers have to live a life of shame. Let's look at the facts. We know that knife crime in England and Wales has been rising for a long time. In 2014, there were just over 27,000 recorded offences involving knives or a sharp instrument. In the space of 5 years, that number had doubled to over 52,000. Last year, there was more than 50,000 such offences, an increase of 4.4% from the previous year. 41% of all homicides in 22 to 23 involved a knife or a similar weapon. I could go on and on. And these numbers point to hundreds of lives being lost to extreme, senseless violence. Each murder leaves behind a grieving family, friends and a community. And since saying I was going to have this debate here, I've been contacted by families who tell me they face unimaginable pain and loss, yet at the same time they feel like they've not received justice for their loved ones. That should fill us all in this place with a sense of shame. We cannot blame this on a lack of investment, lack of youth clubs, lack of youth facilities. Most of the blame, I believe, lies in this room and with every single politician in this palace, past and present. We are legislators, we can change this. I will give that on a point, yeah.
Thank you for giving way, and I congratulate you on securing this debate. Having had to work with the families of victims of knife crime, it's a hugely important issue and very sensitive. Given the picture he's portraying, does he welcome the fact that the Violent Crime Reduction Unit and other efforts of public health agenda in London have seen a reduction in the problem in the capital city, led by our mayor in the capital, but also by individual councils investing to support families and individuals to stay out of crime?
Of course, we welcome any sort of policy in the capital city and nicely that would reduce knife crime, so I thank him for his intervention. But we are all legislators, and if we can't reduce knife crime and save lives, then actually there's not much point in us being in this place. Some will say that we're doing enough. I'll definitely give way.
Savile Roberts.
Also in securing this debate, because it is immensely important. And I think, of course, we sympathise with the families in these awful experiences. And we also have to look, as he rightly says as legislators, what can we actually do to make a difference? And I would point to two instances in Wales, Dyfed Powys and North Wales Police, where the rates are so much lower. You're talking at 30 per 100,000 per population in Dyfed Powys, which of course the Police and Crime Commissioner is Plaid Cymru's David Llywelyn, and 49 per 100,000 in North Wales. And in both instances, they have maintained the school officers who actually talk face-to-face with children and young people about the reality of crimes such as knife crime and violence. And it is to be hoped make something of a real difference.
Hanson.
And I do believe that education can play an important part in the reduction of knife crime. I also think deterrence should play an important part in reduction of knife crime. And some will say that we're doing enough and that action is being taken. And they'll point to the use of metal detectors or knife archers that we're seeing being installed in schools and colleges. How did we get to a point where we've got knife archers being installed in buildings where we send our children to learn how to read and write?
And I thank the honourable member for this important debate. My constituent, Cody Fisher, a young footballer, was brutally stabbed to death at the Crane nightclub in Birmingham nearly 3 years ago. And since that horrific night, his family, and especially his mother, have been campaigning tirelessly to government, including to get bleed kits and bleed control kits and the use of metal detectors in late night venues. So I ask the honourable member, will he join me in urging the government to support Cody's Families campaign and ensure that no more families have to go to endure the heartbreak that they have endured? Thank you.
Jansen.
I thank the honourable member for intervention, and I'm quite happy to support her in Cody's campaign. Politicians highlight bans on certain knives like zombie knives, and that, in all honesty, is not a bad thing, as we need fewer weapons on our streets. But we know the most common weapon used in knife crime is a simple kitchen knife. It's used in over half of all stabbings. If somebody wants to cause somebody harm or intimidation, they don't need a zombie knife or a machete or a sword. They can just get a kitchen knife. Some of you will have heard about the surrender bins or the knife amnesties. This time last year, during the unrests, we had one knife bin located outside a mosque in Small Heath in Birmingham. It was found to contain dozens of machetes, an axe, large knives, and even an adapted knuckle duster knife. How have we got to the point where we politely ask people to hand in their weapons at a local mosque? This is not policing or law enforcement. At best, it is wishful thinking, and at worst, it is total surrender to the problem. This brings me on to stop and search. In the year ending March 2024, police officers in England and Wales conducted over 500,000 searches. Over 70,000 people were arrested and 16,000 weapons were seized. That's thousands of potential crimes, including murders, assaults, robberies and serious sexual offences prevented. Now, this is very impressive, and we should commend our brave police officers in their line of duty. And I know a lot of people will probably say that stop and search doesn't have an impact on overall crime rates. They say it doesn't put people off from carrying knives, but this misses the point. Stop and search is not only about deterrence, it's about detection. It gives police officers the power to remove dangerous weapons before they're used, and it also takes dangerous people off our streets. In fact, in response to the honourable member's intervention earlier, we know that under Sadiq Khan's leadership there has been a reduction in stop and search of over 23% in just 1 year. That's 23 to 24. Meanwhile, knife crime in London has increased by nearly 60% in over just 3 years. And that's according, I want to make some progress. That's according to a policy exchange report. I'm going to make some progress because I know there's a lot of people who want to speak in this very important debate. I've always took through intervention. This isn't a coincidence, and it is a classic case, I believe, of a mayor who could not care less. He would sooner spend his time calling everybody who disagrees with him. I've just said I'm not going to give way, Ms McVeigh. He would sooner spend his time calling everybody who disagrees with him a racist, rather than stopping these endless knife attacks on the streets of London.
I'll remind members that it's down to the Speaker to accept or not. Is it a point of order? Well, I'll listen to your point of order and then we'll decide if it was.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. The point of order, Chair, is that where members are all required to not mislead the House or accidentally mislead the House, there is an issue with some of the figures that have just been presented. And I just wonder whether you could encourage the member to either give the dates for the figures he was using, which show that they'll be out of date, or use the correct data which show that knife crime has fallen in the capital, something we should welcome together.
Yeah. It wasn't a point of order. Would you like to leave the Westminster Hall?
When we're done, yeah.
I'd actually ask you now to leave. Thank you.
Wow, brilliant. Okay,
Thank you. And it wasn't a point of order. It was a point of debate. There are at least 10 people who'd like to speak today, and you do have your chance to speak if you had, but I'm afraid your temper and your attitude doesn't actually belong in Westminster Hall. Lee Anderson.
Thank you, Ms McVeigh. It's not the first time the honourable member has been thrown out of a room on this estate. Of course, we must use powers lawfully And our police cannot be hindered. We cannot allow fear of red tape, of baseless accusations of institutional racism or unconscious bias to stop police officers from doing their job. I've had serving police officers and former police officers reach out to me ahead of this debate, and they've all said the same thing. They need to reform policing priorities from top to bottom. We need to protect police officers and increase stop and search without apology, without hesitation. In the same way, the message coming from our courts needs to be clear. If you're caught with a knife, you go to jail. When someone puts a knife in their pocket and walks out their front door, they've made a choice, and there must be consequences to it. Today, the maximum sentence you can get for possession of a knife is 4 years. For second knife offences, adults are supposed to face a mandatory 6-month jail sentence. But what this looks like in reality is completely different. In 2023, only 28% of people caught with a knife went to prison, down from 33% in 2018. Dangerous men are walking away with little more than a slap on their wrist or a community sentence. The rate of offenders receiving just a caution has dropped a lot over the past 30 years. And we know that the average custodial sentence has crept up to just over 7 months for possession of a knife and almost 15 months for threatening offences. This might sound like progress, but these sentences are far too short. The community sentences are still being handed out to most youth offenders. It's no wonder that young lads are becoming more brazen, carrying knives in broad daylight, making TikTok videos with their machetes. They do this because they know that our justice system is a soft touch. There are lots of reasons why a boy might decide to pick up a knife. Some believe it's for protection. We should never have got to a point in our society where someone feels the need to carry a knife to be protected. That said, I need to highlight that that adult men are the primary offenders. They're responsible for over 80% of all knife crime offences. It's not just an isolated incident amongst youngsters, and it's no wonder when grown men are getting off too. Just a couple of weeks ago, we all saw a man avoid prison despite attacking someone with a knife. That man was burning a Quran, and in this instance, the court has basically said it's okay to take justice into your own hands. If you attack and threaten someone with a knife for causing you offence, he will be the one who's convicted and you won't have to go to prison. And this is at the same time when people are getting locked up for Facebook posts or offensive tweets. It's madness. Communities across the country are fed up with our weak and flimsy justice system. They've had enough. They want action, not words. Over the summer, I submitted several written questions to the Home Office about illegal migrants crossing the English Channel in small boats. I asked how many of them had been found carrying drugs and weapons upon their arrival in the UK. I got a response from the then Minister, the Right Honourable Member for Wallasey. She told me that these migrants were searched upon arrival, and I quote, "Some small weapons, for example knives, have occasionally been seized as a result of searches over the past 7 years." Some small weapons. What kind of pathetic, weak answer is that? People in this country want to know how many and how many knives have been found. How many of these men are still here? How many of these men are still being put up in taxpayer-funded hotels? The Minister owes it to our concerned constituents to tell us what is happening to men who arrive here on our shores carrying knives. We've got enough of our homegrown knife problem already. We don't want to be importing more. And while I'm on this point, I want the Minister to tell us how many illegal immigrants have committed knife offences in our country over the past few years. They might have had a knife taken off them when they get into this country, but it is not that difficult to get another knife. This information should be made publicly available. And I know I speak for a lot of people when I say I'm sick of seeing politicians speaking at vigils, lighting candles, sharing their sympathies with the families of loved ones, of another, while another person has been murdered on our streets, only to come back to this place and avoid taking decisive action. We need police officers who take violent criminals off our streets, courts that administer real justice for victims, and a government who isn't afraid to adopt a zero-tolerance approach to knife crime. How else are our constituents going to feel safe? Our message needs to be plain and simple. If you pick up a knife, you will feel the full force of the law and go to prison. I've got just one ask on behalf of the law-abiding British public, and that is anyone caught carrying a dangerous weapon receives an automatic custodial sentence. I'm not talking about a Swiss Army knife or pen knives or small knives or tools used for fishing arts and crafts and men coming back from a shift at the local factory, or plumbers or electricians or carpenters. I'm talking about the type carried by people who have no reason at all to carry such weapons in a public place. Thank you, Ms. McVeigh. Yeah.